Jesus will provide. Come on, Jesus will provide. Jesus will provide. When the cupboard empty, Jesus will provide. Jesus will provide. Jesus will provide. When the cupboard empty, Jesus will provide. Come on, Jesus will provide.
When you say real talk, serious talk, penetrative talk, you say i95.5 FM, your nation's number one.
Jesus will provide. Jesus will provide.
2021 greatness. Greatness is not measured by what we accomplish, but by what we overcome to achieve our goals. It does not lie in wealth or power, but in character and goodness. It is a matter of conscious choice with sincerity, honesty, and integrity. We achieve greatness when we serve others in doing good to elevate someone. It is what we attain beyond the ordinary, investing our time, our hearts, when we make good on what we do. We each have greatness within us and the ability to give something unique and special to this world. The All-Inclusive Family Show, along with its president, John Wayne Benoit, is destined for greatness in 2021. Every Sunday from 2 to 6 p.m. on i95.5 FM. Greatness is an expression of our character. The 2021 series of the All-Inclusive Family Show with John Wayne Benoit, 2 to 6 p.m. on i95.5 FM. So tune in as we are all on our way to Destination Greatness.
Jesus will provide.
Every Sunday, 8 to 9 p.m., the Anglican Voice is on i95.5 FM. Join us as we discuss topics and events involving the Anglican community and the Anglican Church in the Diocese of Trinidad and Tobago. The Anglican Voice, every Sunday from 8 to 9 p.m. on i95.5 FM.
The Anglican Church in the Diocese of Trinidad and Tobago will be hosting a virtual Lenten caravan on the theme, The Spirit Speaks to the Church Today, The Revelation to John. Streaming live in South, March 10th to March 12th, and in Northeast, March 24th to March 26th. All services will begin at 5:30 p.m. and streaming live from the Anglican Outlook Facebook page and YouTube channel. It's a virtual Lenten caravan hosted by the Anglican Church in the Diocese of Trinidad and Tobago.
This Saturday on Legends and Legacies, we are joined by Michael Boothman, jazz legend, as he takes us back to the days of the combo and brings us right forward to today. This Saturday on Legends and Legacies, Michael Boothman. Join us at 12:30 p.m. Join us at 12:30 p.m. on the most influential name in radio, i95.5 FM.
This Friday on Project Hope, Giselle and Jared continue with part 3 of the series, The Power of Music. The Steel Pan. Does it possess the power to fight crime, change lives, and channel our youth in a positive direction? To put the icing on the cake will be a very special guest, the president of Pan Trinbago, Miss Beverly Ramsey Moore. What are her plans to harness the youth of this nation with the discipline that exists in all Pan theaters? Join the discussion this Friday from 12:30 p.m. on Project Hope with Giselle Chance and Jared Wilson, keeping hope alive.
Project Hope. Welcome to the 95 Mandate. The 95 Mandate. Here now, Ardeen Sergiu and Mariano Brown.
14 minutes after the hour of 10 o'clock, and welcome to the 95 Mandate. Well, Mariano is not here today. He is otherwise engaged, and so too Ardeen. So I'm sitting in for Ardeen, and I've invited a special guest with me this morning to discuss certain issues, mainly financial. And we have with us this morning Mr. Keith King. He's the founder and chairman of Firstline Securities Limited. Keith is a well-known in the Caribbean merchant banking community as a driver of industry growth and profit generation. He has over 35 years of international banking experience at C-suite, MD, and board levels, specializing in startups, acquisition, policy operations, financing, restructuring, insolvency and advisory service to governments and corporations. So let me say good morning. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you, John.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Good. And thanks for coming on such short notice.
Yes.
No, you can relax. No, this is not as hard as it looks. I'm happy to have you here because there are certain issues that, as I mentioned to you, with this whole pandemic, it has forced many people, some people out of jobs, some people have reduced incomes because they had to take salary cuts and so forth. So for a number of people, this is a very challenging time. We have been at it for a year already. Yes. Many people have been forced one way or the other to pivot into either new industries or to find, to move into, businesses of their own. And of course, with that comes the challenge, not only of getting into something new, but the challenge of things like finding financing and other challenges that face SMEs and small and medium businesses. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. So I'm happy to have you here because those are some of the things I want to start off discussing. And so let's talk. What are some of the best ways for people finding themselves either by design or because they are forced to find other ways to survive, and some of them have decided to go into their own business?
Very advisable. As a matter of fact, in our business, we, as you mentioned, in the corporate finance business, but one of the metrics in us determining whether we would lend to someone is the availability of more than one source of repayment. That is one of the important metrics. So quite apart from the effects of this pandemic, that is something that is wise to have anyway, to have fallback positions, other ways of getting by. I hope, and I have been hoping for a while, that crises will not be allowed to go by without new things coming out of it. And so I hope that the inventiveness that Trinidadians and people in the Caribbean are supposed to have would cause us to be able to bring forth new ideas to sustain themselves. Necessity is the mother of invention, I gather. And we are quite willing at Firstline Securities to support such ventures, provided, of course, the things are well thought out and that the people who are bringing them forward have a sense of what we are doing. We are, of course, financiers. We are not expert in the various areas of the businesses that people come forward. Of course, for us to lend any money to anyone, we would need to understand that they understand their business, so we get to know a little bit about their business before making a decision. So I'm hopeful that many people would look at new and innovative ways of making it. I know many people have turned to agriculture and to catering and food businesses, but I'm also hoping that other things would come out of it. Particularly, we see abroad many technology companies
startups
have made it. Some of them are not startups. It's just that they managed to get lucky as a consequence of this pandemic, and a lot of business has been driven to them. Things that they would have thought they would have achieved in the next 5-10 years has been achieved in a year because they were ready and they had the appropriate infrastructure and support, financial support, and maybe even in some instances a government support to carry their businesses forward. And I'm hopeful that here as well, there may be some youngsters out there, because generally these new things tend to come out of young minds. Of course, the young minds have to be nurtured, and they have to be often enough adults in the room to bring the full package of things to make a business successful. Because not only ideas make a business successful, you have a number of other disciplines that are critical.
But that's very correct. But one of the things that, even if you have an idea or ideas, or you have the will to want to do something differently, or you are forced to do something differently, the challenge is still finding probably capital, financing it, and so forth. Now, what are some of the options for people like that who have been, because of this whole situation, or maybe because they had a plan a long time, and now the opportunity presents itself, and they see the opportunity to get into business? What are some of the options for people like these? What, in your experience, what would you recommend?
Well, worldwide, capital is scarce. Capital has always been scarce. But many people have structures, probably for thousands of years, where they have support from family members. Some those family members stretch across geographies, actually, and they have their culture of investing in business. You see, some people perceive that investment means putting your money in a savings account. That isn't likely to get you too very far in terms of growing your wealth. But in some cultures, they understand that equity is the way to go, and they're willing to take the risk, provided that they feel comfortable in terms of the honesty and ethics and work ethic as well of the person they're putting their money into. I must say that in Trinidad, we have some cultural groups that respect that, but in large measure, the Trinidad culture has not been towards fostering private equity generally. I think we have more of that happening in Jamaica, quite frankly, and it's interesting to understand why that is, because they also come out of
Similar circumstances,
but their history seems to be quite a bit different in terms of their acceptance of risk. At one stage early in my back-end career...
1 minute. So let me get this clear. So are you saying then that in Trinidad and Tobago, the culture is one of risk adversity?
Oh yes, most definitely. Most people feel that the money should go in the bank, right? At a savings rate, 0.5%, 1%, and they can sleep nights, good, and
but you are saying that is not necessarily the best option. It is a safe option, yes, but it's not the best.
No, it's not the best at all. As a matter of fact, it guarantees, unless you have the capacity to generate a lot of income from your day job, right? It guarantees you, I don't want to say guarantees you poverty, but it's fairly close to guaranteeing you poverty in the long term.
Or let's put it another way, it does not guarantee you great wealth, because your money is not earning the kind of...
No, it will not.
So in other words, what you're saying, there are two ways for people to make money, essentially. One, you work and you earn money. Another way is to have your money work and earn for you.
Yeah.
So those are the two main options. Now, for a number of people in Trinidad and Tobago, young people or people with ideas, or people have been forced into business. Some of them may have had some level of savings that they're able to use and so forth. But for those who may not have had, are there options for them to source financing other than the bank?
Well, all right. I was going to tell you that a long time ago, while I was working at a bank, and we were trying to, well, I suppose amongst the staff, debate the difference between Jamaica and Trinidad. One of the comments that I would have heard was that Trinidad was so liquid in terms of the banking sector that much of the lending that took place was quasi-equity, right? And that many people could access equity in quote-unquote from a bank loan. Whereas in other countries where the financial setup wasn't as strong and as liquid, people had to find structures, equity structures, private equity, venture capital, going to the stock market to be able to get capital.
Now, explain that for the layman. When you talk equity, explain that a little more for the layman. When you talk about equity, what are you referring to?
All right, equity is patient capital, patient money. Well, if you want to enter into business, right, there are a few ways you can get the money to do it. Of course, one of the ways is borrowing from the bank and get a loan. The other, but that tends to have strictures. That tends to, what the bank would say, you have to pay me back in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. You have to pay me back every month, every quarter, every year. Equity is not that. Equity is someone or a company could be doing it, or a government agency could be doing it, puts money into your business and they expect a return, but the return tends to be variable, right? There's no certainty about it. And that capital has to be patient because of the uncertainty. You, depending on how the business fortunes go, and sometimes it's not even the business for the business could be doing very well, but because it's growing so fast, it needs more and more capital. So people who invest in it can't get their money out because the money has to be reinvested, right? So that uncertainty requires what we call patient capital or patient money.
Okay, so what are the how can I say it? What are the tools or systems or whatever that people can use to access patient capital?
Righty.
Are there such mechanisms here in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, that's why I was referring in a very early point, but it may not have come across properly. There's a cultural issue here. Many people rely on family and friends and relatives to provide that patient capital, that seed money that would stay around for a while. Some other cultures don't have that. So they may have to either not get that kind of money, and they may have to rely on entities which may be venture capital entities, or they may get money from loans from development institutions. So we had a development bank here. I'm not sure how much of that they are doing at the moment, but we had that for a while, and then you had a few multilaterals that would have put money into that, and sometimes you can get grant money from multilaterals as well, the European Investment Bank, the IDB, the CDB, that could put in some money, but that tends to be a longer gestation to get going. The ideal situation, which unfortunately we don't have in Trinidad, the ideal situation is if we had a culture of angel capital, venture capital, where someone could present their ideas and have a ready access. I know we had a TV show,
Planting Seeds,
yes,
that attempted to provide some of that.
Right, but that has to be institutionalized. It can't be a one-off kind of thing. People need to know that if I have a great idea, I can go A or B place, right? And it would be useful if there are a few such places. I know one of my former employees or compatriots, KCL, they launched a venture capital entity there into that type of thing. We ourselves at Firstline Securities, we have provided equity in the recent past, and sometimes we do it, but it's not our core business, but we have done it.
Let me ask this. Why are banks, the commercial banks, not more involved in providing that kind of financing, angel or venture capital?
Because generally that's not their remit. They take in savings money, and they have to, or they perceive they have to be able to return that money to depositors at will. Now, of course, the history, and that doesn't mean the history is going to continue that way, that we haven't had a situation where there's a frequent run on banks in Trinidad. As a matter of fact, I don't know, once in probably the last
ITL?
100 years or something.
The last
Once or
one I
twice.
remember would have been ITL,
Yeah.
not so?
Yes,
International Trust.
yes,
Would have been the closest thing to a run.
yeah. So it's not as if that is part of our history. So within the banking sector, I can recall people coming to me in my past life and complaining bitterly that the banks were not helping, and the particular curiosity was that seeing that we are over 100 years in the oil business, I used to be getting complaints that why won't we investing in the oil business, the energy business, because you're 100 years in this, you all should know that, man. You all should be able to go into that. But it wasn't so easy because of the volatility of the oil business for a bank to accept that as a appropriate and safe way to deploy the savers' money. But the banks in Trinidad are generally well capitalized. Generally, some of them 18%, 20-something percent in terms of regulatory capital. So they do have the capacity to sequester some of this capital.
Why aren't they doing it?
Why aren't they doing it?
Is it does the risk aversion that you talk about that applies? Does that also apply to the banking sector?
Oh yes. It's a cultural thing, maybe, and I suspect as well that they're doing well enough, but without it. So why am I going to take extra risk? And I'm comfortable with the return on investment that I am getting.
But in terms of responsibility, national responsibility. We talk about diversification, or we give it a lot of lip service. But the question is, are the different institutions in the country, financial institutions in particular, are they prepared to assist in that whole issue of diversification, of innovation? For example, how many banks have assisted in things like research and development?
I would be surprised if there are any. But there are many things that are going on that I don't know about.
Right.
We have a university, and in many countries, industry pairs off with the academics to be able to foster research. How much of that is going on in the Trinidad context, I don't know. Of course, there is a general go-to source of government to do that kind of thing, and we have had some successes in the Point Lisas environment of the government fostering that kind of thing. So we're not bad. But I think
the thing is, we can be better.
We could be a lot better.
Let me ask you this directly: could we be better with greater private sector involvement?
Oh yes, considerably better. The ideal situation, is that our diversification should have come out of the private sector over the last 30, 40 years. Unfortunately, that has not happened. It has come from the government sector, right?
But you know, and you use Jamaica as an example. That has not been quite so in Jamaica. A lot of the diversification in Jamaica has in fact come, or a great percentage of it has come from the private sector.
And that's, I suspect, remember I was telling you about necessity?
Yeah.
In the Trinidad context, understand where capital it comes from in Trinidad. Capital comes from economic rents out of the energy industry in Trinidad. The largest percentage of the capital and savings generation comes out of oil, gas, chemicals.
Right.
In Jamaica, it's different. They don't have that sector. So who runs the economy there tends to be the private sector, right? It would have historically been agriculture, and then they moved into tourism, and I'm sure
the bauxite.
Yeah, they had bauxite and so on, but that has had its challenges, just like oil industry has had its challenges of volatility and so on. But the primary source of income into the country over there may be the private sector, whereas in Trinidad it was the government. The government is the one who garnered most of the income and savings. So they are the ones who had the capacity to execute on new ideas that may come to their attention.
So is it that we have a lazy private sector?
No, I wouldn't say we have a lazy. I would say the private sector is in Trinidad is fairly good. I can recall, and I'm not sure whether that still obtains. But when Trinidad had a problem many years ago, as we have had with downturns, Trinidadians went out into the other countries and did very well. They did. I know a number of contractors that were traditionally doing their business here and went out. As I remember, I was saying necessity,
right,
mother of invention. Went out into the various islands and carried their business there. So Trinidadians can do stuff.
I know. I'm not saying we can't. I'm just wondering why, for example, you're making the point that, for example, for Jamaica, a lot of what happens is driven by the private sector. Here we have everything being driven by the government. And is it because of that the private sector feels like, all right, all they're doing it, we will just watch what they do and we will sit down on the side and reap whatever benefits we can reap? Is that the attitude? Or ideally, should we have a private sector that is more involved in determining the direction of our diversity?
That is an ideal situation, but historically that hasn't been what it has been, right? However, there's nothing to say that can't change. But right now, I think most people in the private sector are likely to use a risk management approach. All right, what am I good at? What can I do? Can I get an adequate return staying in the business that I am? And if you can tick all those boxes, good. I know what I'm doing. I've been doing it for thousands of years. I've been trading for thousands of years. I've made a good living out of it. Why am I going out of that? Good. I have the capital to be able to do that. I don't have to bring other people into my business, because that's one of the things, and that's a cultural thing. To allow strangers into the business could be a bigger payout, not in terms of money, in terms of time and getting to know somebody. So you have to be culturally or psychologically willing to allow people, strangers, into your business. And many Trinidadian families are not willing to do that.
All right, but the question is now the time for that change to happen? Because, and you're talking about ticking off certain boxes. For a lot of people, they are being forced to go into business on their own now.
Great.
Right.
Great.
So, and for many of them, they can't tick a box that hey, I've been doing this for a long time, because for some people they're going into stuff that they're now learning, they're going into things that they didn't do before. So I mean, the reality is they do need assistance. And how can they find that assistance financially? Are there institutions that are willing to assist, or not? So is it that we sit on our hands and say, well, I really want to do this, but nobody ain't willing to help, so what do we do?
We don't have very many institutions that are willing to do it. That's the fact.
How can that change? Or should it change?
It must change. And it must change. Otherwise, proper smoke will bag. Yeah, because I don't know that we could continue doing the same things that we have done all the while, and have a place in the world continuing. We end up being mendicants, and I don't think that's something that we want to have. So I am hopeful that coming out of this crisis, that there will be a change. If often enough in life, and I'm no historian or anything, that there are kind of pyramid structures, right? So if you have one person going down in a particular direction, the probability of them succeeding is whatever particular ratio. But if you have 10,000 of them going down, you have a support structure below them. Good, and they may be, the probability of them succeeding is likely to be far greater than if they went alone, right? And I think some countries have a culture about that. If you take the village with you, the chances of success are much greater, and so we have to do that. Now, you talk about innovation and Trinidadians' willingness to do new things. You have to start with some base. You can't tell me, all right, I want to build a nuclear plant. Good, because Trinidad oil is going down, so I'm going to build a new plant. That's not a reasonable route to go. Right. But you may be able to do something fairly close, right? You may be able to do hydrogen fuel cells, right? That is not too far off of our history in the energy industry. So you generally try to grow incrementally, even if sometimes it's a big jump, but it's not too big a jump that when you look down, there's nothing or nobody below there to catch you.
If we talk our history again, Keith, we as a people have proven, our history says, we are pretty innovative. We are the people who invented the steel pan. And I mean, and we have 100 years experience in oil. A lot of the innovations in the industry may have been started here. So I mean, as being innovative as a people, we have that as it's part of our DNA. Why isn't that? Do we forget that we are? Why aren't we using that history to propel us into the future?
Well, we have to celebrate those people. We have to celebrate.
So are you saying that we don't?
No, we don't. As a matter of fact, that's one of my peeves about our culture here. We tend to pull down people, right? We tend to pull down people, and it's sad. It's sad. We instead of celebrating the wins, there is a entity that I a little bit of involvement with, and it has so much potential to carry us forward. That's the gas, the liquid. The gas to liquid.
I see
we could convert the gas that we have into clean diesel, and the huge amount of negatives. I don't know if we understand of our people the potential that has to carry our country forward. If we could produce clean diesel with those methanol plants that are closing down all around the place. But why aren't Trinidadians behind that? Don't they understand that we need to change what we're doing? And so it's things like that that are a huge disappointment.
Well, a lot of it is unfortunately probably political in terms of what drives the negativity to certain things, which you're right, kind of holds us back. But then it's because a lot of people don't have the information, and the information is not out there. Because I've been seeing articles recently kind of criticizing that same plant and talking about all the negatives rather than, as you say, celebrate the positive.
And support it.
And support.
Because it's going to redound to all of us here. If that succeeds, we could replicate that 1 million times. And I say 1 million times, and I'm not calling a wrong percentage, 1 million times, because there are lots of gas and stranded gas and methanol problems all around the world, plants closed down and so. And we can make a business of that for ourselves and our country. So if we don't, other people are going to take it and run with it, As a matter of fact, some people already have. They already have. So stuff like that bothers, and we need to change that culture. And I don't accept the political thing, because we have, as a country, to come together and work for our mutual benefit.
I hear that. 622-3937. If you want to join the conversation, if you have a question for Keith, feel free to give us a call, 622-3937. But, you're right in terms of, everything is kind of connected, though. Let's go to our first caller. Hello, good morning. Welcome to you.
Hi, good morning, gentlemen. Good morning. Very good conversation. I heard one of the comments in terms of, I know you were asking the guest with regards to the fact that you don't, like financial education and so on, in terms of if you have a cultural problem with people accessing the equity markets and different types of financing for businesses. And it's partly, I believe, cultural, but I think also, again, it goes back to the basics of financial literacy. And we have a problem in terms of access to information. You find the part of society that has this information. And let's talk about even the wealthier populations in Trinidad, the 1% that we like to refer to. This is normal in a talk conversation in those families. From the time somebody is born into a family, it's like a mentorship that takes place over years and years. So they would sit down with the children, they would groom them for business, they would groom them in all aspects of understanding financial education. Eventually they sell them off to schooling and college and so on. But it's a conversation that it doesn't take place. It's not a one-off conversation. It's basically a lifestyle, and it's a mindset, and it's that mentality. And the unfortunate thing is that a lot of ordinary, when I say ordinary, people come from normal backgrounds, middle-income families, low-income families. They're not privy to
some of that, and you're right. And also to not only did they help them with probably financing and so forth, because of this, they're so immersed in it. They are also able to recognize opportunities a lot faster.
Exactly. And the thing is, from my own experience, I mean, I started a small business. I consider myself a small business person. I started when I was like around 19. I had to claw I can't compare myself to the 1%. I'm still clawing my way. I'm still trying to find my way. But the thing is, I had to dig and research and read and study. There's a saying, you want to be healthy, you have to study persons who have good health habits.
Right.
You want to be wealthy, you have to study the wealthy and the mindset of the wealthy and what they have done. And even the thing is, I think we reach a point where I always say this generation, and when I mean our generation, not necessarily millennials, but over even the past generations, we are, and even now more so, we are one of the most entertained generations ever. Everything, we have so much because of social media. We have quick access to because the Netflix of the world, the Facebook, all these things. And we have the tools and resources there with so much wealth of information, but it's what we choose to do with our time and what we choose, how we choose to access it. So I don't buy the argument again. If it was probably years ago when you had to go and pull up an encyclopedia and you had to study and go to college, you have YouTube. You have so many resources. I have learned so many things over the past 20 years. I'm 40 years old now. I remember when I started my first business, it failed at 19, but I learned so much from that failure. I tried something else. You learn from failure. The way we learn to walk is by falling down. We learn to ride a bike by falling down.
And you're right about the access of information, because like in Trinidad and Tobago, the industry of phone repair, a lot of those people who are in that industry actually learned their craft not in school but on YouTube.
Exactly. And there's so much information. I've learned so many things. Even during the COVID there, my pipe burst in my house and I had to go on YouTube and learn how to fix, and I was able to do a little plumbing for myself, basically. You can learn so many things. You have so much access to information.
All right.
The thing is, and I mean, for your guests, I would like to ask a question in terms of even with access to the stock market. I have been a proponent for investing in the stock market probably since around early 2003, around there. I started investing locally in buying little shares and garden holdings and little 10 shares here, 20 shares here, understanding the market. I think we still have a long way to, because not everybody wants to go into business. But the thing is about putting money in your bank account and saving is a loser's game over the long term, because of the amount of, you're not going to make any money. You're not going to build wealth that way. And the thing is, a lot of people still don't understand how the stock markets will work. Accessing, we have great companies here that you can invest in. The banking sector every year, and I always tell people, every year you see RBC or you see Republic Bank or Scotia Bank posting their profits and making more and more money. And people will complain, I have my money in the bank account, but I'm not getting, they don't feel like they're getting anywhere, they're not making any money, they're not growing their savings in a bank account. Yeah. But you see the companies posting record profits year after year, and you wouldn't think to buy a stock in one of these companies. And it's very, very, very easy. But again, it goes back to education and understanding how to go and open a brokerage. And it's so simple to open a brokerage account. So you start to buy a share for $10 in a company, $15. You leave it long term and it just keep on building well. You pay dividends, so you can reinvest those dividends over time. And the thing is, we have a long way to go in building up our capital markets, because I think we still have a lot of companies, great companies in Trinidad that are privately held that should be on the stock market, and they are not, probably because of the scrutiny that goes along with being a public company. Yeah. And not everybody wants to undergo that kind of, So
let me ask you, what is the question you had for Keith? You said you wanted to ask.
So I want to find out if it is that it's twofold in terms of the local stock exchange, why it is more companies, I guess that's what I was heading to, why it is a lot of companies are not, you don't see a real trust for companies listing onto the stock exchange in Trinidad and Tobago. I know the local stock market has put a framework in place and they had lowered the cap for smaller companies to be able to come onto the market. But what is holding us back from really being able to get for companies to list and take that step so that Trinidadians can have greater access to these same companies that we are all, think of we can name many companies that we have customers
patronized,
and that we patronize, and we would like to be able to have some equity in those companies.
All right.
Well, let me answer one of those questions. Well, earlier on I mentioned the liquidity in Trinidad, and people have access to capital through the banks, and they can readily get it that way. So many of them figure, why do I need to go through the hassle of listing and all the accountability and reporting and the governance issues that attend being a listed company? Why do I need that hassle? Why if I am going to list, in all probability I'll have to bring on new directors on board and so on. Why do I need, if I have a family company, I'm comfortable with my family, and we doing well enough, thank you. Why are we going to bother with that?
But one question he asked, and I know it was done, that allowances were made by the stock exchange to allow smaller businesses to list. Why haven't we seen more of that?
Well, for the same reason,
Same reason.
It may be in some instances is a big company, and in some cases there are many big family-held companies, and of course they are small family, and both of them may have the same thinking. Also, their structures, they are part of the economy that have people who are Muslim faith, Islamic faith, and they have their structures to have community involvement and family involvement there. So not the whole country is not a homogeneous way of accessing capital. So I would, in answer, I would say people have alternatives to raising money,
Capital.
but it is not the best way to go forward. It may have been that way, but we need to bring more of the country's ideas to market, and that may come from opening up venture capital avenues, because not everyone has the capacity to go
But
to family and friends.
But isn't listing an avenue for raising capital as well?
Yes, it is. But listing, you have to tell a good story. You have to be able to show that you have the full gamut of resources. So as I mentioned, resources, not only money here.
I know.
You have to have management, you have to have
etc.
controls,
But
accounting.
Are there institutions to help young businesses to meet some of those requirements for listing, to encourage more companies to list?
I think there are, but they're probably not being publicized and pushed. And that is a policy matter. I think that the government institutions, maybe a little longer ago, when we had a very, very, very active development bank, were more pushing that. But I don't think it happens now.
All right, we have a caller on the line. Hello, good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
What I like to find out, let's say that I have a $10,000 and I want to invest it.
Mm-hmm.
What is the best opportunity it will be for me? I'll listen off here.
No, I hear your question, but, that answer has to be a more one-on-one discussion, doesn't it, Keith?
Well,
Because
I can make a general comment.
I know, but for individuals, it needs to be a more one-on-one, because people have to assess their risk aversion, all those kinds of things.
Right, and their age and all that. Yeah. And generally for someone, they can start off with a mutual fund. Okay. A equity-based mutual fund could start, and they graduate to different levels of risk after that base. So a
mutual fund is a good start.
Is a good start.
What about the stock exchange? Is that a possible good start?
A good start too, and so that you allocate a percentage of your wealth towards equities. So you can say, all right, I'm going to go 70% in fixed income. All right, fixed deposits, income fund, and a mutual fund, and I'm going to put 30% in the stock market. And there are some stocks that are fairly lowly priced in the stock market and are growth and have had a long history.
No,
and you can go into those.
No, you talked about earlier. We talked about patient capital,
right?
But for people who want to invest, there's also patience that is required there as well. Because it would not necessarily happen overnight.
Yes, it is unlikely to happen overnight. So you have to go in with a mental disposition that this is not an overnight thing. However, there are some stocks on the market that pay even better than savings accounts. Right? So that should be a early entry or easier entry.
And they have two payment options. They are dividends, as well as you have the price of the share that could go up, and so forth. All right, let's take one more call before the top. Hello, good morning.
Morning, guys. Morning. Yeah, my question is, we are looking at the young people, the youth, getting involved, and should financial literacy be taught in school, and how early? Because we are seeing where people, I mean, in some jurisdictions abroad, they have started doing this from elementary school, secondary, and people who graduate and go on. Because when people hit the workforce, you find that they are not being able to save properly, to know investment. My question is, should we be starting teaching financial literacy in the schools? How early? And so that this will better help us to recognize our investment possibilities.
Right. Most definitely, and matter of fact, it should start in the home, even earlier than school. So, yes.
All right, so it's 11 o'clock on TNT, and it's time for us to take that break for 11 o'clock news update. And I turn the mic over to Onika James.
Broadcasting from Port of Spain, Trinidad, this is the most influential name in radio, i95.5. Live local coverage you can depend on. This is News Center 5 at 11.
Good morning, I'm Monica James. This is your update to the hour. Supermarkets Association says it is not slamming the government over delays in accessing COVID-19 vaccine doses. The association says it wants to work with government, hence its move to source vaccines for its workers and members. The Progressive Democratic Patriots wants to continue talks with the People's National Movement in Tobago, but it is recommending the involvement of mediators. And the PCA says it has started investigating the fatal police shooting of 2 men in Chaguanas earlier this week. I'm Monica James. Stay with us. These and other stories coming up in our 12 o'clock Major News Center 5.
News Center 5, live local coverage you can depend on. i95.5, the most influential name in radio. More people listen to our news than any other newscast in the country. More people get their news from the station of record, News Center 5. Following leads, following events. News Center 5, live local coverage you can depend on. i95.5 FM Talk, the most influential name in radio.
Growing with the Caribbean like a strong tall coconut tree. We're here to help you flourish. We're RBC.
RBC has been growing with the Caribbean for over 100 years. With new ways to bank better, we're committed to deepening our relationship with existing clients and forging new ones in the future with new products and services and investment into community, youth, and education initiatives. We're here to help you grow.
We're here to help you flourish. We're RBC.
RBC Royal Bank. Banking reimagined.
The National Catholic Men's Ministry invites you to join us at 6:15 every morning until March 19 in a 32-day consecration to St. Joseph as we pray especially for the men of our nation to be better brothers, better husbands, better fathers, better men, better men.
The Organization Committee of the St. James Police Youth Club presents Police Youth Club Farmers Market from Saturday 28th March to Wednesday 30th June at 5:30 a.m. at the Police Youth Club Center, outside yard at number 5 Sierra Leone Road, Pitti Valley. Fresh fruits, vegetables, seasoning, coconut water, cleaning supplies, the most affordable prices ever. Come out and support the St. James Police Youth Club Farmers Market from Saturday 28th March to Wednesday 30th June, empowering our nation's youth through agriculture. Get your vehicle washed while being attended to. Call 632-6084, 296-1218 or 291-9224 for more information.
This Sunday on episode 12 of Ion Dependency, where every life is a biography.
The lingering impact of violence, whether physical, sexual, or emotional, is never easy to overcome. This Sunday, Garth and Natasha speak with 2 women who have survived unimaginable violence to themselves and women close to them. These of their stories.
I experienced sexual abuse and sexual violence. I was gang raped. Years later, my mother was raped and strangled to death. I am ready to tell my story.
I was 4 months pregnant. My best friend and I just wanted a job, but we were raped instead. My best friend took her life because she could not cope with the pain. I am ready to speak now.
Also, joining the show will be Aisha Kobe, manager of the TTPS Victim and Witness Support Unit, to provide support for the painful reenactment of the trauma these women will carry for the rest of their lives. You don't want to miss Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography. This Sunday from 6:15 p.m. Listen live on i95.5 FM and watch live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel. Tell someone.
This Saturday on Legends and Legacies, we are joined by Michael Boothman, jazz legend, as he takes us back to the days of the combo and brings us right forward to today. This Saturday on Legends and Legacies, Michael Boothman. Join us at 12:30 p.m. Join us at 12:30 p.m. on the most influential name in radio, i95.5 FM.
This Friday on Project Hope, Giselle and Jared continue with part 3 of the series, The Power of Music. The Steel Pan. Does it possess the power to fight crime, change lives, and channel our youth in a positive direction? To put the icing on the cake will be a very special guest, the president of Pan Trinbago, Miss Beverly Ramsey Moore. What are her plans to harness the youth of this nation with the discipline that exists in all Pan theaters? Join the discussion this Friday from 12:30 p.m. on Project Hope with Giselle Chance and Jared Wilson, keeping hope alive.
Project Hope. This is it. This is it. The 95 Mandate with Ardeen and Mariano.
All right, by now you must realize that it's not Ardeen and Mariano is not here. I have with me Mr. Keith King of Firstline Securities, and we're talking access to finance, and I think we're going to take a little segue into, because one of the callers raised it, into financial literacy and how important that is for our population. Now, I'm going to give you, I'll give you one example with myself. I can't remember what year it was, but I had bought a foreign use vehicle, so I used to be in the bamboo pretty often. And that was around when they were giving out new license and so forth. So they are walking into the bamboo marketing, and Praki called me. He said, "You in radio, right?" But he knew, right? So he asked me, "When you're applying for your license?" Keith, up to that point he asked me that question, the thought had never entered my mind. Mm-hmm. Because he said, if you get one, I go help you,
Okay.
But the thought, Keith, had never entered my mind. I'd been in radio probably about 10 years. In radio, doing shows and so forth. But the thought of owning a radio station myself had never entered my mind before Praki asked me that question.
Right.
And I'm saying, and this is where we talk about, when I said, because they're so immersed in it, opportunity, they're able to recognize opportunities a lot earlier. Maybe if I was more immersed in that, I would have seen the opportunity before Praki mentioned it to me. Right. If you understand what I'm saying? Yes. And I see that as one of the shortcomings, and maybe things like financial literacy and even access to ideas about business that most of us, the majority of Trinbagonians may not have access to.
You're right.
Maybe one of the shortcomings. But anyhow, 622-3937. You can call us. I saw you had a couple calls just now. I was running my mouth, so they're cut off. But you could call back now. 9 minutes after the hour of 11 o'clock. And again, we have with us Mr. Keith King. And once again, thanks for coming, Keith. Hello, morning to you.
John Gill.
Sir.
Keith, morning.
Good morning.
I just wanted to share a little piece that we were talking a little bit earlier about the entrepreneurial spirit that innovation and so on campaign with Jamaica.
Right.
And you made the point that we're very creative in Trinidad. And I want to put something to the table, possibly for other people to respond to it. But we are creative for consumption. We good pan music, we create carnival costumes, we create food, great dishes, and so on. But what we do is that we create, we consume, we enjoy the things, and then we discard. And we don't seem to go the next couple of steps where we create, consume, enjoy it, but where we go to developing a prototype, going into production, and then going to market with it. And I think that it is those other pieces of the, yes, we're creative, but we don't push it to the full entrepreneurial.
I hear you. You know, but the only thing may have been, the only little thing out of that, maybe a little different, is that with the development of pan, we took something that was discarded material and turned it into something beautiful. You know, so we have the potential is there.
Yeah, John,
but I agree with you totally.
Tuesday night, we pushed the rack in our corner.
And left it there.
We left it there. Yeah. No, when somebody in the States say we're going to patent this thing and take it to the world and make money off it, we jump up and start to make noise.
Yeah.
Same thing with carnival costumes. Agreed. When they start to bring costumes from China.
Yeah. I hear you, and you're right. We discard. This is why recently, I don't know if you saw what Rubadiri and they were doing in terms of reviving a lot of those costumes and putting them in Woodford Square. You saw that?
No, I didn't see it.
Yeah, that was amazing. And you're right. We are a society that discards stuff. Like, how many people still have? There are people who have saved them. I've seen like some of Wayne Barclay's work. People have turned into decoration ornaments in their homes and so forth. But mainly, like for example, I was taking the other day, the beautiful wings from Mention's Papillon. Where are they? And some of those things were works of art.
No, we have some individuals who do it here. The people who take the carnival production thing around the circuit. They're taking it in that kind of way, but it's also, but even that is
it needs
for
to be more.
There.
It needs to be more universal, though.
Right? Why are we not producing costumes and exporting to Italy for Carnival in Venice?
Yeah.
You know, China could export costumes. Why we can't export costumes for, you know? And it's those kinds of things that I feel, and it's a little bit of fear, and that's one thing. But the other piece that was interesting that was talked about was, you know, the question of mentoring and what we discuss. So people who have businesses, family businesses, what do you think they discuss when they're having dinner?
Around the dinner table, yeah.
They discuss business, you know?
Yep.
The question then is, what do we discuss when we're around the dinner table? Food. so it's exposure to the conversation.
Yes.
And the thing is, if it starts, then the cycle can continue. But enough of us not starting that cycle. Okay, let me leave it and let some other callers.
Thank you. Thanks for your contribution.
Okay.
Hello, morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, sir.
Good morning, John.
Morning.
I was just saying that Mario was sounding kind of strange this morning. Sounding kind of conservative.
This is Keith King. He's quite conservative. Don't worry.
Mr. King.
Yes, sir.
You sound like a very religious type of person. I'm sure you're perhaps an acolyte. You remember that story?
Not an acolyte, but I am indeed a Christian and a Catholic.
You remember that Sunday school story, Mr. Keith, about the master who went away and he left these talents with the servants, and one chose to bury it?
Yes.
Well, I akin all private sector to that individual. He buried it. You want to know why, Mr. King? Central Bank is still telling me that 86% of what I consume, I import. So something has to be wrong there. Right. Something is radically wrong. You cannot tell me you have a robust private sector. When I drive through Train City, what do I see, Mr. Keith? A huge building to go to China, buy for 10 cents, come back here and sell for $1. Drive through Chagonas, see what you see. That's what they do. They're not doing anything to create anything. Mr. Keith, let me ask you a question. 10 years from today, when the world is flying around in cars, driving around in Elon Musk electric cars, where would we be? Why can't we develop an electric car manufacturing plant here, seeing that we have a vast market in South America?
Oh, you know.
What?
Caller, we didn't have to go to manufacture in car, you know. If we could just manufacture one component, the essential component of that vehicle,
But Mr.
you know the
Manning
kind of
wanted
money.
to do that. That is why we wanted an aluminum smelter plant. That is why we wanted a polypropylene plant. All of these things, because these are the things of tomorrow.
And the naysayers are the ones that
The last entrepreneur this country ever had was a fella called Lawrence Dupree. After there was nobody else. Because he saw things, he had a dream, and he took risk. And that is what is absent in this country.
All right.
So we have an asleep private sector, Mr. Keith. I wouldn't agree with you that they're doing a good job.
All right. Thank you.
Well, I would say that they would think that they're doing a good enough job if they have decided that they want a return of 12, 15, 20%, and what they're doing gives them that. Why would they step out?
It satisfies their financial need. But what about, should the private sector have responsibility, a social responsibility, a social conscience that is above just earning money?
Yes, and there is a growing movement in the world, the social impact in investing, that speaks to that. But often enough, we forget how small Trinidad is. Remember, I was talking about the pyramid concept. That you need a certain amount of mass, and that's why some Trinidadians have to go abroad to make it, because we just don't have the breadth of opportunities here. But that doesn't mean that we can't decide to specialize in a few niches and go forward with that. And I think we should. I think we should.
But then that has to be private sector driven.
It should be.
It should
be, but I don't know if necessarily it will be that way. I would like it to kind of gradually move, that you have collaborations between the private sector, the universities, and the government to move gradually away. I would like the conversation in families with respect to entrepreneurship, because I can remember when in my parents' life, when you grew up, your ambition was to be a public servant.
Exactly.
I know for me that was not ever an option, and that's one generation later. I had hoped my children, for instance, wouldn't consider the public sector, but who knows? That's an option that is available, right? So you could have a gradual shift in thinking, in information that is available, that people could take and use and create new things with.
Let's take a call, but I want to come back to that whole thing about the gradual shift and what do we need to do to ensure that shift happens. Hello, morning to you.
Yeah, back again. I know I was the last caller before the news.
Right, yeah.
But, listen, so we said that it can be done at an early age and it should continue during the school. Now, the thing is that I saw the private sector, yes, they are slow to innovate in this country. They are. And let us call a spade a spade. What I saw happening during this pandemic was that in the University of the West Indies, a ventilator was developed where it was locally made, done by students at the university. And it was very innovative, and I believe one of the first in the world, the model that they started to make. Nobody in the private sector picked up on this. Why isn't the private sector being encouraged to do research and development in some areas? We are looking where Tanzania and Ghana, I think it was recently, this week, told Switzerland that we are not sending any more chocolate and cocoa and coffee up there. Not even our gold. We are doing it ourselves. Instead of we ship things out, they add value and send it back to us here. No, so that ventilator venture alone, nothing came of that. I would like you guys to go and research that. So I'm saying that, okay.
No, thank you. And he makes a very important point. I mean, an innovation like that, someone should have picked up on it. And For example, I don't know if you know of MIC.
Yes, I do.
I remember going to MIC about, this probably would have been 10 years ago, and I saw something invented by students at MIC that assisted the blind. It was like a walking cane that would be able to judge like the height of places and so forth to assist a blind person, and nothing was done with it.
Well, let me explain something here. We in an island, we small, and I suspect that often enough our minds are also small, in that the big country mentality that when I do something, I'm not doing it for 10,000 people or 50,000. I'm doing it for 1 million. I'm doing it for 1 billion. I don't think people who grew up here have that breadth of vision, and probably including me, that my idea, I want to take it to the globe. This little island is not limiting me. But you have to have that thought in your head.
I hear you. And we see that with how PAN has developed to a certain extent. The fact that it is not as global as probably it could have been. Right? So you're right in that. And that would have been true 10, 20 years ago. Today, however, the world is a lot smaller. So the ability to think global, to think for millions or billions of people is now at our door. If you understand what I'm saying. And the opportunity to take our ideas to the world is now at our door.
But we still have that issue of trust. In business, one of the scarcest commodities is trust. And I do understand this concept of the global thing. But not everybody has the capacity to trust people that they have not met. They don't know their agendas, they don't know their culture, and any number of people could give you many examples of things, how they get cut up. Somebody take the idea and they went with it. And
but there are tools to prevent some of that now. In terms of you can patent an idea, you can do. There are steps that we can take to secure ourselves.
To attempt to
secure ourselves, right? Yeah. And it's just that we
But
need
the biggest
to be
thing
more,
is trust.
I hear that.
If you have a community where there is a trusting relationships and there's something in it for all of us, that is likely to encourage people coming forward with their ideas and pooling their resources to
take it
forward and abroad, not only here.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Hi, morning, gentlemen. Again, I called earlier. I just want to touch on even here talking about in terms of globalization and so on. I think one of the problems I think we may encounter here is the accessibility in terms of accessing not only information but the ability to go outside. Yes, the world has shrunk in terms of the global markets, but there are lots of the ease of doing business in Trinidad is one problem, but also the ability to go outside and to be able to network and access anything outside is a problem. We have a lot of high barriers to entry for persons who are trying to gain access to the international markets, whether it's in business or even with, I was giving the example earlier of being able to invest in the stock markets. I don't know, and I would like, even this is a question to is it
Keith King? Yeah, Keith King.
Right. Well, because, as I said earlier, I started investing in the stock market, local stock market, for a few years, like 10 years, 15 years ago. And then there was a point where I wanted to access the U.S. stock exchange. Thankfully, I was able to, but the amount of research I had to do just to be able to access the U.S. stock markets and to be able to, not only research, but the capital, the barrier to entry is very high. Because what happened, we have a lot of platforms. Everybody know the Robinhoods and the Ameritrades and the E-Trades, all these trading platforms for persons who would like to be able to invest in the capital markets internationally. But we are bad in Trinidad. I don't know how many people know that we are bad in Trinidad from using those platforms. Trinidad is on the list of.
But my company, Firstline Securities, we can facilitate you accessing because we have the capability to, and there are other institutions who can usher you. But if you go by yourself, you may not succeed. But if you go under the umbrella of an institution here, they may be able to get you where you want to go.
Access, yeah.
Correct, and that's it. Because I know there are a lot of local because I actually had to do it through a local brokerage company to be able to access the markets. But it's very the average person is very expensive. I don't know in terms of with your company the rate, but it's very expensive to be able to access the markets because you're talking about most persons to open an account. It ranges from anywhere from when I opened mine, it was $2,500 US to open the account. And then there's most of the firms charge probably like $5,000 US and up. And the average person doesn't have that access to those funds.
Well, maybe one of the
shortage of US,
one of the routes you could use is to have a wealth management account, what we call asset under administration. So you go in that route, and the company can execute for you. They can manage your money for you and do what you need to get done. And gradually, you can graduate from that into having your own brokerage account. It's a process and a time frame to get there. But there are ways to get in.
So that's like it. For persons, because I know a lot of persons. I've done it now. Thankfully, I've been able to do it, and I through a local brokerage. But it was a lot of headache just trying to get started and set up. And it's something that a lot of people I know who always ask about it. So that's probably a conversation that could even be developed as well and informing the public on the ways to get access to the capital markets and so on internationally. Because I think a lot of people don't have access to that information. Always there. But it's just, in terms of education, again, that's just another avenue.
A wealth management account is the way.
All right. So, Keith, so deal with that as we on it.
Right. Well, there are brokerage houses, including ourselves. We are a broker dealer. We can get you. You can sign up for our wealth management account, and we assess what your risk appetite and what you want to achieve, and we could choose a portfolio for you. And it could be dealt with through that route. So it's not an impossibility. And then there are ETFs. Good. You may not have enough resources to buy a share in Berkshire Hathaway because of the size of but you could buy a fractional share or go into an ETF that spreads the thing among a number of things. So there are routes, but maybe you don't have to do all the work yourself. Go to someone who has the expertise and they could carry you through.
And as we had that, give people the number of Firstline, so if anybody is interested, as we talk this, that they can call.
Good. Yes, you can call 628-1175, 628-1554, and ask to speak with a representative there, and they will put you on to one of our reps who can lead you through the process. It's the banking world these days requires an onboarding, and so we have to get to know you, and we could usher you into doing what you really came for, which is to invest and to invest safely and to invest in a way that would earn you the superior returns
that you're
looking for, that would get you where you need to go. The savings account is good and great, but it's not sufficient.
Hello, morning to you.
Good morning, John.
Morning.
How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. And you?
Could I make a contribution?
Sure.
To Tobago as well?
To what?
Tobago.
Tobago. What? The situation in Tobago?
Yeah.
No, that's not what we're discussing this morning. Sorry. Hello, good morning.
Hi, good day.
Hi, good day.
Well, it's a very interesting topic. My business is IT, and innovation is a part of this. And I'm involved in different things. Like, for example, you were talking about investments and so on, and I find it interesting that we fall back on this almost archaic way of handling investments in Trinidad, even though we talk about innovation. And I would say it is and would apply to those that would want to invest, and it is there. The services, for example, offered here. But you know what? We need people to innovate. That guy who was talking about the cost of investing. For years, I've been investing in different things. I would say that locally there's a blockage. I will equate it to this. I wanted to register a will. I got a quote for $1,800, $3,000, $2,500. In the end, I went to find out about registering, got a document with the instructions, and paid $3 to register my will, total, right? So I think that we need to really make people aware of, for example, if his business is investment, I am coming to destroy your business. Not because I want to, but because if you do not innovate and make it easier, it's the same reason why LASIK surgery is affordable, maybe more affordable than other surgeries, because of the fact that there's competition. And the competition has to make up its mind that it's going to give the citizens access. And I could go in the States and I could create an account and I could invest for minimal and make maximum. And I'm talking from the point of Trinidad has certain blockages. Fear is there, but you will not find that fear permeating in the U.S. I remember being in a thing with some guys from Silicon Valley, and they were simply saying that Trinidad has fear. We don't really have that. Yes, it's there, but people validate their ideas. They get out, they validate their ideas, and they move forward with it. They don't have that fear that somebody's going to steal their ideas. They do what they have to do to protect their ideas. I think that is what needs to be done. The government should facilitate. I mean, it is there. There are facilities for it. But it should become a little easier to protect your idea, at least on the local market, at least in the local environment, and allow people to bring forth their designs, their ideas. And, you know, when you look at a company like Facebook, let's say somebody was to start a company. Forget about how wealthy these companies are. But half or a quarter of what they are earning is way beyond our local budget.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So it's a tremendous marketplace out there, and we need to innovate beyond even what is being shared there about investing and so on. And I think that we have I always say this, Tobago, red mango. I love that's Tobago red mango. I don't see it nowhere in Trinidad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe it is. It is a wrong, but it is nowhere near what it should be on the Trinidad shelves. I go to Tobago and I see Trini red mango all over the place. I ignore that and I go to my people in Tobago and I buy the local Tobago
So let me ask you a question as we talk innovation. Why haven't you tried to find a way to assist those Tobago red mango manufacturers to
Brother man, let me first of all, I've called in multiple times on this when Tobago, you know, I've called in and spoke about it.
Yeah.
I have actually launched something. I am in Tobago next from the 25th.
Uh-huh.
And so I will be talking to a few people. But you know what? I am not interested in me making money from this thing. I want to be able to facilitate people and have them have their product out there.
Right.
And I think that's what we need to do and step back away from just profit. Right now, I have customers who come to me for all kind of equipment, and I am supplying equipment at cost. I have suppliers in the States, and I have customers who I am simply directing them to my suppliers so they could get equipment at cost here in Trinidad.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
I
So
hear
for
you.
me, I am a person, let me tell you, I'm a little disappointed in some of the facilities. Years ago, I went to Nedco with a product. One of these devices I had for sale was over $5,000 US. And the marketing department sit with me, and you know what they came up with? Do some flyers. I went on to win tenders in the energy sector, awarded tenders in the energy sector for those same products and things like that. So my point is, I was supposed to do what? Give flyers out where? You understand?
I hear you.
And so I'm not necessarily bashing the idea and what is structured already, but if you don't prepare for the innovation, what will happen?
You'll be left behind.
Not only that, if you are in the field, you have the knowledge already. Help maybe a developer come out with a way to integrate into the foreign system for validating investments.
I hear you. All right.
Electronically.
But maybe you know what you could do probably if you choose to. Call 628-4955, leave your name and number, And maybe you could have a discussion with Keith privately. Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot. Have a good one. Thanks for your call. Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Morning to you.
Yes, the question I want to ask the guest there, John, is that, government does owe business people a lot of VAT to return. I am, and I to ask that question. And you have no other mechanism in this VAT regime. Maybe I was wondering if we copy it from somewhere and we don't look to some way, we don't look at it to do something with it in a sense that I buy, I pay my VAT, and I sell and I collect my VAT, rather than how it goes these days. I wonder if you know if you have any way of going about that.
All right.
And the other question is with the same business thing. If you give me $1 million foreign exchange this year to shop, how that is being policing to know if I only spend 50 and next year I come back for the same 100?
I hear that.
Those are the two questions I want
to
answer.
Thank you. Interesting questions there, Keith.
Right. Well, we do have a business that finances receivables. I suppose VAT is a receivable, but to the extent it is validated, it is possible to get it discounted. There's a limit, of course, to that. I do agree with him that there's a lot of outstanding government receivables, and I heard the Prime Minister last night talking about the constrained circumstances for 2021 and worse than it's likely to be for 2020, which may mean that the state is not able to pay in as early, well, I don't think you want to use the word early with the state, but be able to pay. So, on a timely basis. So, but yes, the financial sector is there to, and we, Firstline Securities, can assist in discounted receivables.
Keith. All right, so government owes businesses and others VAT. These companies also probably owe the government tax. Is there any way to do a write-off and say, well, if you owe me 50,000 and I owe you 100, rather than I pay you the 50 and you pay me 100, just pay me 50.
Yeah, well,
is that a possible
sounds logical, but I don't think they do that.
Yeah, but the thing is, Keith, we have to get to points where things like that are possible, because then it would save a lot of the the bureaucracy. If we work it out, I owe you 50,000 in VAT, I owe you 100,000 in taxes. Pay me 50, and let's write it off, and everybody go be good.
Yes.
Government will get more revenue coming into the coffers, and have less to pay out.
Sounds very logical.
Sounds logical. Yeah. Not everything logical. And then the second part of his question was about one was VAT, and what was the other one? I'm forgetting. I'll try and remember. Yeah. Let's take another call. Hello, morning.
Hi, morning. Good discussion. We in this country, right? Just as your guest was saying earlier, we have probably right. We have a limited scope of how we see things because of probably our access to markets, etc., compared to a developed country. And so in entrepreneurship, we tend to restrict how we see what creativity means for us then in like the Caribbean. Let's say Singapore and these countries who became newly industrialized. They took a attack on imitation, etc., and say, well, look, you can't just say creation and innovation. Yeah, it might be very well imitation. You understand? So
talk to China about that.
Yeah,
China has made their money on imitation.
Exactly. So we keep talking about creation, and waiting on this whiz-kid to appear from somewhere. And to support that, our education system is a poor model for development, for creativity anyway, because all it teaches you is to work for somebody, That's all it teaches you. It doesn't teach you to I mean, later in the secondary school, etc., we could talk about doing business subjects and all. But those things don't teach you. So even in our organizations, the formal organization, yes, we want everybody to work for themselves. But when you're working in our formal organization, we talk about zero errors. And in the U.S., there are companies who encourage mistakes. There are CEOs in Fortune 500 companies who tell you, if we don't make mistakes, I don't get anything better. You understand? So they give out a rusty drill every quarter to somebody who created the most outside the box thinking. Not that you'll burn down the place, but you must make mistakes to learn. So we have a setup of mindsets that we need to change in this country. You see the scholarship move that the government is saying, look, we're not going to give scholarships, or we're going to restrict scholarships, probably phase it out, and then offer bursaries. That's what we need to do. We need to produce incubators, which is later on away from secondary school, when students trying to pursue a path of career, where you say, well, we encourage you to go in this direction. And going in that direction don't mean you're getting handouts. Another thing we do is we consider entrepreneurship and people ideas for making business as wanting money from government to start your business. We have to encourage people to think about access, or to look forward to access to markets. In that way, even if you give money, you know it's coming back very quickly. You understand? So there are certain things we need to change. But one good thing I like about the government is the attack on scholarships. That is just a leakage.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, well, there are three things that would have been mentioned that I wanted to comment on. One is the concept of failure. Failure is indeed part of life, and
part of success,
and part of success, and it ought to be something that from home you have to build up your children to understand that they have to strive for success, but be willing to accept failures along the way. But you pick yourself up after that. So that's one concept.
So we're talking not so much failure, but really resilience.
Well, resilience, yes, but you could call it in all sorts of words.
In other words,
reality,
not to fear failure, but to accept failure.
Accept it.
But to be resilient.
Resilient, you fall down, you get back up, right? And you get back up better, right? For having learned. I always say that some of the most terrible circumstances have been the best. Well, of course, I didn't realize that at the time. But it caused you to do things in a different way and change and grow. Right, so that's one thing I wanted to mention, that is a cultural thing that to take place in the family, it should take place in the school, that people have to be strong enough to know that you can go ahead and try, and if you fail, no problem. The biggest problem is if you refuse to get
That's right. The problem is not failure. The problem is what you do after you fail.
Yes. So that is the thing. The other thing is the concept of work. Work is sometimes, I don't know, it's as if it's a bad word for some people, and I think work is a critical part of the human being. You must work, whether you need the money or not. Good, you must work. And one of these successes, from a cultural standpoint of some people in the community, is that they perceive that if the average person is working 6 hours a day, they work in 15 on a daily basis, every day, whether they're on holiday or they're not on holiday. And they would say that my success is not necessarily that I'm brighter than you, but when you're working 6 hours, I work in 15. Good, so that I will throw so much resources at my problem and my failures and my ability to bounce back. But if you're not willing to put in the work, your chances are that you're not going to make it. So that's the other concept that I would like to be inculcated, that ethic to put in the hours. The third thing that someone mentioned was this thing of doing something for free. I don't believe in that, you know. I believe in enlightened self-interest, and you don't have to get a return necessarily in money, but I feel money is a good part of the thing because it causes you to allocate time. Because many people have plenty things to do, you know. They have things to do for their family, they have things to do for their business, they have things to do for government, they have all sorts of things. But if there is a financial outturn that benefits them and their family, they might allocate more time and energy to it. So, while one of your commentators there talked about doing it for free and whatever, I would be so much happier to be involved with people whose interests are aligned with mine in that they want a return on investment.
You know, I think the point he was making more so was the need to share what you know.
Yes.
And there's a problem we have in Trinidad. A lot of people have information and they hold it close to the chest.
Right.
They don't want anybody else to know what they know, not realizing that the more people that know is the faster we can all grow. You know, I think that may have been the point.
But that is a bigger problem that we have. You are located to that. I have a concern that we are not a unitary state. I think we probably about 10 or 15 states inside of here.
Just in Trinidad and Tobago.
Whereas I gather in Jamaica is one country.
Again, that has to do with history.
Yeah, but Trinidad, for us to make it, we have to become one country, and there has to be some kind of commonality of interest where we all could rise. Yeah. And do you know how much reserve Trinidad has? You know we have more reserves than most of the Caribbean, and we have had that for a long time. That is a problem I have here, in that people seem to think that if I ain't get mine, I ain't getting again, you know. So I better get all out again, no.
Greed.
Right?
That's called greed.
Well, you call it greed. I'm not even sure that it's greed. I think it is a fear, and it's maybe a cultural thing. But we have sufficient here that if we were to change our mindset, because it goes far, if we knew or people believed that there was enough here for everybody. You think that we would build the roads that we built?
You know, and the
we
thing
would
about
build roads for 50 years. We would build buildings for 50 and 75 years. But no, we wouldn't do that
because we want to get you up in the next 5 years. And you're right. And this has the whole concept of abundance.
And we have abundance here.
And this is what I'm saying, but a lot of people don't understand that.
Yes.
That we have abundance, and once there is abundance, it means you are taken care of.
Yeah, and you can help take care of others.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Morning.
Good program.
Thank you.
Yes. My next thing is I'll appeal to the management on this program and
say that again. We're kind of losing you intermittently.
I said this is for the management. Put you on this program and wait for those who were there before. Initially. Now, hear what I'm saying. We're talking about invention, talking about kind of stuff. It's only feasible and profitable if you can use the material from home here to take the export. Because the market here buying stuff is, in order to survive, it's very small. Have you ever been to the San Juan market Monday to Sunday? If you go to the San Juan market Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you see people, you could count on one hand in any one store where people have endless stuff that they plant here that is not being sold. Right? So if you want to open a business, if you want to invent something, your market must be able. We can import. It's not feasible to import stuff. Yes, to make stuff. And to send it back outside. It's profitable. a local market cannot sustain that.
But let me just stick a pin for a minute. Have you ever heard of NAMDEFCO?
Of course.
Do you know that there are many facilities at NAMDEFCO for storage, for processing and so forth that many people do take advantage of?
I know that. That is storage. Yes, we're talking numbers.
When you say numbers, what you mean? Explain for me.
Well, when you're talking numbers, I plant those. I have a place to store it.
Right.
I store 40 pounds of potatoes. The storage that is free. I think going out, I think it's 4 months to sell 10 pounds. You feasibility study, sir. Right away.
But let me ask you something. So you're saying you had 40 pounds of potatoes, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So if you had allocated, let's say, 20 of those pounds to go into, let's say, the manufacture of fries, for example, right? And you and you took another 10 pounds and you allocated that to the manufacture of mashed potato, and then you left the other 10 pounds for sale. So it's all about planning out your how you use your product and what is available. And I think there are ways in Trinidad to probably do that.
But right, boys are saying again, I understand that. Who's setting up the fries?
Who's doing it?
Who's setting up the potato?
I don't understand. I'm certain if there are not people in Trinidad that can do it, I'd employ 2-3 people. Let them cut up the potatoes in fries and freeze it and so forth. Come on.
Let me tell you something. I am listening to all the stories. I'm just 57 years.
Yeah.
I love BBC, man. I want to listen to 95.5. Let me tell you something. The young boy who had his stuff in his father garage come out as a multi-millionaire today. I listen to all of them on BBC. Get people to finance them. We don't have that in Trinidad and Tobago. All of them get...
I want to say this there. I don't know. Have you ever read a book called The Celestine Prophecy?
I heard of it.
All right, read it. Because one of the things I learned from the Celestine Prophecy is this. When you have a goal or you make a decision that you want to go in a direction, right, and you start the process of working towards that, all the things that you need appear in your life.
Yes,
and I have seen it happen.
Percentage of the business.
And we're talking business. So if, for example, with your 40 pounds of potatoes, you had started some of the ideas that given to you, trust me, the people that you need to take you to the next level would have appeared. Trust me on that.
Yeah,
you gotta have faith. All right?
Those players who wrote those books, big market out there. They wasn't based on Trinidad.
Nah. You see, again, you're limiting yourself. Take off your blinders. Take off your blinders for me. All right? Thank you. Hello, good morning.
Hi, good day.
We have 3 more minutes because I have to go to Tobago.
That guy is talking about, I agree with you, taking off the blinders and stuff like that. We had to get fear out of this thing. You understand?
Yeah.
Keep moving forward, just as you say. If you start to innovate, if you have your idea and you could bring it to the front, what you need will follow, right? I started a business with a screwdriver, you understand? And then I had to move on from that screwdriver to tools, to training, and reinvest in myself. I think people need to understand that not because you earn $20 from your $1, mean you go and you spend $20 on yourself, right? So at the end of the day, we need to reinvest in our businesses, reinvest in ourselves. There are a lot of private... Let me just say this. The only 1% I ever meet in Trinidad is politicians. They don't produce nothing. They don't earn anything, yet they can lose billions of dollars without consequence. And I'm saying that, yes, okay, there's 1% outside of that. But let me tell you, there's nobody in any private business that could do that. So, Trinidadians, get up, think about your idea, go without fear, and talk to your friends, talk to your family. And I'm talking about, forget about injury and incidents and things blocking you and you had to lose all your money and whatever. Get up and go again. Try and overcome the fear of failing.
Yep.
And move on. Look at it as a learning experience and try and surround yourself with, people talk about, surround yourself with people with like mind and all kind of at the same level. That's foolishness. I mean, no, it works.
Mm-hmm.
But let me tell you something. Some of the poorest people is the people who invested in me.
I hear that.
You understand what I'm saying?
I hear you.
So it is not about people at my level and all kind of thing. And yes, there's a lot of that. But get away from the fear of simply talking to friends and family and saying, here, I need 100 or I need 1,000. 10 people could put 1,000 and you have a start.
Yeah.
Overcome that fear.
All right. Thank you. You know, they say fear, the acronym for fear is what again? Something appearing real. Okay. False evidence appearing real.
Okay.
And I saw another acronym the other day for fear. Forget everything and rise.
Okay.
And I kind of like that last one.
Okay. Both of them sound very good.
Everything and rise. And sometimes that's what we would have to do. Keith, let me say thank you very much for coming through. I thought it was a very interesting conversation. And I want to say thanks to all the callers as well. Any final? Give people the number for Firstline again for me.
Oh, wow. Free advertisement.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, come. You didn't expect that.
No.
But,
yes. But 628-1175, 628-1554, Firstline Securities, and we're willing to accommodate people's dreams. We have been doing that for the last 15 years, accommodating people's dreams and growing their business.
All right.
We're willing to do that for you.
Thank you once again, and I greatly appreciate your coming on short notice.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
You're most welcome. All right, up next, the THA update.
Welcome to Info Update. In the headlines, secondary schools get a big boost to aid online learning. The Tobago Tourism Agency is celebrating a notable milestone as it prepares for the resumption of international travel to the country. And hoteliers are preparing for an improved Easter weekend for local tourism.
Info Update. Informative,
insightful,
unfiltered,
the issues,
topics and conversations that affect you. This is the THA's Daily Info Update.
And now for the details. We start with education, as several hundred secondary students will have better access to online learning with the latest device distribution. Here's this story.
850 Tobago secondary students will benefit from the latest contribution of computer devices by the Division of Education, Innovation and Energy. Principals from the island's 9 secondary schools collected the devices recently, which will be used to support students' virtual learning as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. In all, the division provided 800 laptops and 50 Chromebooks. Education Secretary Marcelin Melville Jack says it's all to ensure none of Tobago's students are left behind.
I believe in my heart that we have done a tremendous job, not just as a division, but corporate Tobago. We know that the private sector in Tobago is a small one, but I am grateful for those individuals and companies that have stepped up and they have decided that they too will make a donation.
Denise Tobikwashi, administrator in the Education Division, is also praising the leadership of Tobago schools for ensuring students continue to get quality education in the face of new challenges.
Our principals have also been resilient over the last year. They kept open communication with our school supervision unit, managed the adjustment of their relevant schools through the different phases of the pandemic, and led their schools through challenging times.
The division will next distribute 151 devices to primary school teachers. I'm Davia Chambers for Info Update.
Now to tourism. as the Tobago Tourism Agency marked a significant milestone in its efforts to promote health and safety in Tobago's tourism industry. It's awarded more than 100 tourism businesses the World Travel and Tourism Council Safe Travel Stamp. The Safe Travel Stamp is the world's first ever global safety and hygiene stamp for travel and tourism. It was designed to address COVID-19 and other similar outbreaks. Tobago's 100-plus safe travels tourism businesses include tour guides, restaurants, tourism ancillary services, and tourism accommodation. Among them are some of the largest properties on the island: Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa, Mount Irving Bay Resort, Magdalena Grand Beach and Golf Resort, Le Grand Corland, and Karuak Holistic Haven. Gloria Guevara, World Travel Tourism Council President and CEO, says Destination Tobago is an incredible holiday destination that's becoming more popular each year. This is why the Council is pleased to see Tobago implementing enhanced health and safety measures that are in line with their global protocols to ensure safe travel. Dr. Sherma Roberts, the chair of the Tourism Agency's Board of Directors, says this accomplishment is especially important. She says it's been almost 1 year since COVID-19 brought the global tourism industry to a halt.